Welcome back, Tyrants. Got another One Piece discussion video for you today. This time we're going to be talking about a topic that kind of came up in my mind a little while ago, and it's something I've just been thinking and ruminating on for a little bit. But it's about the topic of Ace and Robin and the parallels between them. And now I think this is somewhat of an interesting video because Ace and Robin aren't really two characters that you put side by side. When you think about Ace and all the kind of movements and all of the connections he's had in the One Piece world, you don't immediately think Robin. I don't even know if you think Robin. And for the same of Robin, when you think about Robin and all her connections, you don't think about Ace. But when you look at just the way they led their lives and the way they're currently leading their lives and kind of just the path they took to get where they are now, there are a lot of parallels, and I think a lot of comparisons can be made between how things happened in each life and how they ended up. Ace and Robin happen to be two of my favorite characters. I mean, Robin's probably my favorite Straw Hat, and Ace is, he's just one of the favorites. He's Luffy's older brother. He's 2nd Division commander of Whitebeard Pirates. He's just such a cool character. And when we go more in depth of his character, you learn to love him more and more each time. It's like every time you hear about Ace, you find something else to love about him. He's just that kind of guy. Of course, this video is more or less just something that I noticed and not something that's explicitly written in the story, or I wouldn't even say it's intentional in the story. I don't think Oda necessarily wrote these two in a way that they can be compared like this. It's just something that I happen to notice and something that I want to talk about because I find it very interesting. I find it very interesting because of how different the characters are, but how similar their experiences have been. So let's start with childhood. And we all know the history of Robin's childhood. We all know the history of Ace's childhood. So I'm not going to really rip into kind of delving into their history, but I do want to highlight points that I think are very similar in each case. So both Robin and Ace grew up without quote unquote their biological parents. Now we know that Ace's father is Goldie Roger, and he died before Ace was born. And then we have Porcus D. Rogue, who died when Ace was born. So when Ace was born, he didn't have any biological parents. And eventually he grew with Garp, he grew with Dadan, and that's kind of the parental figures he had up until Whitebeard. But with Robin, she came into the world, and it's somewhat unknown how much time she spent with her parents. I think there's a small glimpse of time in which she did spend time with her mom. I don't know if she necessarily spent time with her dad, but her dad ended up dying before he could finish a task that he was doing, so Olivia took up the task. And in that case, Olivia left when Robin was really young, so Robin doesn't even remember what her mom looks like, or the key features about her mom. So in a way, Robin also grew up without the biological parents. Not that they were dead, they just weren't there. Now, like Ace was raised by Dadan and Garp, we have Robin, who was raised by Clover and the Scholars of Ohara. And even though they found these adoptive families to kind of join, there was still a lingering of they didn't really belong, or that they didn't really, there was something about their existence that was still kind of off. For Robin, it was her forbidden knowledge. She knew what the world would say is too much, and that was always going to be a problem for her. While Ace had a forbidden bloodline. He was the son of the Pirate King, so that instantly made him, a nightmare, a demon. And they carried these kind of forbidden rules throughout their childhood. We see with both Robin and Ace that a lot of people deem them as demons, even though, one, they didn't know who they really were, and two, they hadn't done anything. With Robin, she went from household to household trying to find a family, but they would always turn her in because, she had a huge bounty. She was considered a demon scholar. She had this knowledge to destroy the world. So whenever she found a family, they would end up turning on her, and she would be running from house to house, and they would be calling her a demon. Ace is somewhat different because no one knew that Ace was Goldie Roger's son. But what Ace would do is he would go around asking others about if Goldie Roger had a son and what they would consider for that son. And he got some of the same responses. That child would be a demon. That child would be an evil plague brought into the world. And people, without knowing the child at all, without knowing anything about it, would automatically classify it as a bad thing. And so both of these kids kind of got this mentality that they were demons, that it doesn't matter who they were as people or individuals, they were demons. And they grew accustomed to that. They really didn't have the notion to think, maybe I'm not a demon, for a while. They kind of had that mentality of, maybe there is something wrong with my existence, or maybe I don't know everything about why I exist. And it's a terrible tragedy because these kids, these young kids who haven't done anything, who haven't wronged the world in any way, are already being treated as criminals of the highest order. Just by being born, they've had labels put on them that they can't really deal with. And I think Robin to a lesser extent, because with her, it's more of the knowledge she gained after she was born that kind of gave her that label. She wasn't born into the kind of demon era as Ace was, but she fell into it quickly enough to where it's like in their youth, they were classified as demons no matter what. Now, once they grew old enough to travel the world, we kind of see where the similarities start to spread out a little bit. They're not as common, because what happens is that Ace charges into the world head forward. Like he just rushes in and tries to take the world by storm, and he, to his right, does. He gets his own crew. He makes a name for himself. He becomes a very infamous pirate just on his name alone, on his power, on his ability. Whereas Robin, she more or less she's still moving, on and about throughout the world, kind of in the shadows. Now, it's not to say that she's afraid of the world anymore, but I think she has lost her ability to trust. I don't think she's really been able to trust for a while now. And at this point, she's kind of just moving through organization to organization, just trying to continue her goal of learning more, but also keeping her distance from people. So it's almost like they went in opposite directions, right? Because Ace he went out into the world and he started gathering people around him, whereas Robin went into the world and she started keeping people away. And if you look at that and you look at the childhood where Robin was still trying to find people and Ace was more fine being alone, you see that they flipped the script on that. So they completely changed and they kind of started doing something a lot different. The key thing that I think comes out of kind of their younger years, like before like the huge main storyline, is that these characters were both trying to determine what their existence was about. I think they had an idea, because with Ace, he was trying to figure out if he was supposed to live, if he was supposed to be, alive and enjoying life, being the demon that he was. And with Robin, it was kind of the same thing where, am I supposed to exist with this knowledge? Am I supposed to be going through the world? Where do I fit? Do I fit anywhere? Or am I supposed to be like this shadow figure that doesn't exist but does exist? What does the world have in store for me that I can find? And the answer for these two, as far as like finding a place and finding a reason to keep going, comes in the form of pirate crews. With Robin, you have the Straw Hat crew. With Ace, you have the Whitebeard Pirates. With both of those crews, they found a place where not only they felt like they belong, but they felt like it gave them a reason to keep going. Instead of just plowing through, trying to figure out what's going on with their own lives, they adapted this mentality that, hey, I have a place I can fit in now. Like, I'm not just alone out here in the world. And I'll say that Ace kind of developed a mentality to where he didn't necessarily need a family to belong like that. Like, Ace created his own place, but he still didn't find his answer. Whereas Robin wasn't really looking for a place, but she was looking for an answer. And I think they both kind of found what they were looking for in their respective pirate crews. However, even with those crews like initially joining, they still didn't find the answers they were looking for. Those answers didn't come into place until the next big connection really came together, and that, I want to say, is Luffy. Now, before we get too deep into that, I want to say that, of course, Ace and Luffy have a different kind of history and backstory. Ace, in a degree, was always living for Sabo and Luffy. He always carried their wills with him, and Luffy has always been a driving force for Ace. He even says that, for if it wasn't for Sabo and Luffy, and even Dadan, there really wouldn't be a reason for him to continue going. And that's something very important to kind of keep in mind. But when I say Luffy's a connection for these two, it's because I'm talking about the moment where they officially decide that, you know what, yes, I do exist, I do want to exist, and I do want to keep existing. Because them going forward and trying to find the answer and them finally getting the answer are two very different things. And I think when they finally find those answers, Luffy is the main connection for that. And before we dive into Luffy, I want to talk about two key moments each character has before their big, I want to exist, I want to live moment. For Robin, it's the moment when she's talking with Frankie, and Frankie's kind of getting to know Robin for the first time. He's starting to figure out what kind of person she is. And Frankie makes the comment that existing isn't a crime. Just being born, just living, that's not a crime. People can't accuse you of doing something wrong if you're just existing. And I think that quote in particular is very important because it speaks to Robin in that moment, but it also speaks to Ace. His entire existence has always been classified as a crime, as something that just shouldn't happen. And so for Frankie to just outright say that existing isn't a crime, I feel like it stems past Robin over to Ace, and it kind of carries that same weight of your existence isn't a crime. And in comparison to that, I look over to where Whitebeard and Ace are talking, and Ace tells Whitebeard that he's Goldie Roger's son. Whitebeard tells Ace that, the sins of the father don't fall to the son. Ace isn't responsible for Goldie Roger's actions just by existing. And that the parallel of those two being told that, their existence isn't a crime, their existence, isn't a sin, after the world's been kind of force feeding them the idea that it is, that they did do something wrong. And to have these figures tell them that, I think it's a huge moment, but it's still not the moment that they needed. It's a moment that they cherish and that they, I think, really appreciate, but it's not the moment that they needed. The moment that they need to make the final decision to live comes with Luffy. And it comes in a very similar manner, because it's when Luffy comes to save them at their weakest point, when Robin's getting ready to be executed and taken over the Bridge of Hesitation, and when Ace is about to be executed in Marineford War. And Luffy is there stating that, no matter what, he's here to help. And you can look at it in a way that Luffy gives Ace and Robin a reason to keep living. And even look at Luffy from a longer standpoint. If you look at what Ace has been through with Luffy, you already know that one of the reasons Ace kind of grew up to be the way he is, the reason that he kept going the way he did, was because he had Luffy, was because he had kind of that little brother and someone that not only he wanted to look out for, but someone that looked up to him. For Robin, it started since Alabasta, when Luffy saved her and she joined the crew initially. Luffy kind of kept her living because she was just going to die in that cave, but Luffy gave her a chance to live again, whether she wanted it or not. So it's like Luffy started the trend of them kind of continuing their lives, and he solidifies it in his actions as far as saving them goes. So when Luffy has gathered up people to come and save, whether it be Ace or Robin, both characters get the moment where they realize that there's someone out there that cares for them. There's someone out there that absolutely wants them to live no matter what, and they're going to do whatever they can to make sure they live. Again, the situations are slightly different because with Ace, I think he found those people earlier than Robin did. Ace found the Whitebeard pirates and, they were a family. They, of course, wanted him to live. But it still seemed like Ace hadn't found the answer he wanted. I still feel like Ace didn't have that answer until he saw Luffy and everyone else fighting for his life. And with Robin, she really didn't have those people, but when she saw Luffy and the rest of the Straw Hats ready to put their lives on the line to save her, that's when she had her moment. And the moments are very similar because it's pretty much like Luffy showing up with a crew. It doesn't matter who it is, but it's just Luffy showing up and, announcing that he's ready to save you. And Ace and Robin kind of had these moments of, I don't understand why. Why are they here? Why are they wasting time on me? because they still have that mentality that their existence is a sin, that's a crime, and that they shouldn't exist. They, even after all these years, after everything they've been through, they still kind of have this mentality that, you know, if I'm dying, maybe that's for the best. And it's not until Luffy kind of jogs it out of them that they realize, no, wait, I want to exist, I want to live, I want to keep doing things. You know, people care about me, people want me to live, and I want to live too. And we see that there's nothing but gratitude from Ace and Robin when Luffy goes out of his way, when everyone goes out of their way to save them. There's nothing but gratitude, no matter what happens. We know that, you know, for Robin, it turned out well. For Ace, it unfortunately didn't. But each character was still absolutely grateful for just the love that was shown to them. And what's weird is that this is a parallels video, but there certainly are a lot of directions in which Ace and Robin go in opposite directions. Because like with the finality of their arcs, you know, Robin gets to live and continue living with the people that love her, while Ace unfortunately dies in the arms of the people that love him. So you get that parallel of them both being able to thank Luffy for giving them a reason to go on. Unfortunately, not all of them go on. And to go even a step further and to kind of wrap things up, there's one more connection that these characters have that's probably the most interesting to me, and that's the connection of Sabo. And the reason that I say this is the most interesting to me is that Sabo has a connection to Robin, Ace, and Luffy in different aspects. Like, if Sabo wanted to, he could tell Robin about Ace, and if he wanted to, he could tell Robin about, you know, Luffy's childhood. And not only does he have history on these characters, but he also has a friendship with Robin. You know, Robin is friends with Revolutionary. She's friends with Koala, and I mean, I don't know if friends is the right word, but she knows Dragon, and she's friends with Sabo. So in a way, she's kind of friends with Ace because Sabo is kind of like the inherited will of Ace. And so for characters that had this very similar upbringing, the fact that they meet indirectly like this is very interesting to me. Because, like, you know, Sabo doesn't necessarily have to go into detail about Ace, and it's possible that they never did. So Robin could still know nothing about Ace. But the meeting and the interaction still kind of brings forth that at some point they came together. And to me, it's just an interesting narrative overall. Like I said, it's not something that I think Oda kind of wrote to be followed. I don't know necessarily if it can even be viewed that way, but that's just something that I've seen and I've thought about. And I don't know, I see so much in these two characters, and I see a lot of things that definitely can be compared, even with how vastly different the characters are. So yeah, tell me how you guys feel about Ace and Robin. You know, do you feel the same way? Do you think that the parallels are there? Do you think that there's not really any connections? Feel free to let me know in the comments. Feel free to drop a like, feel free to subscribe, and make sure you guys have a great day. Bye.